The rain fell in heavy sheets, pounding against the pavement like a war drum. The air crackled with tension, and a sense of impending doom hung thick over the city. The night of July 2024 would be etched into history as the moment fate nearly changed everything. Donald Trump had always known that his path was extraordinary. He had faced trials, betrayals, and battles that would have crushed a lesser man. But nothing could have prepared him for what was coming. The presidential campaign was at its peak. The rallies were larger than ever, filled with tens of thousands of supporters chanting his name, believing in his vision. The energy was electric, the passion undeniable. But then, in a single moment, everything changed. The arena in Pennsylvania was packed to the brim. Secret Service agents flanked him on all sides as he took the stage. The roar of the crowd was deafening. As he raised his hand to wave, a sudden shift in the atmosphere sent a shiver down his spine. A flicker of movement in the distance, then chaos. A loud crack split the air. It was deafening, more than just the sound of a gunshot. It was the sound of destiny itself being challenged. The next second was a blur. Pain exploded in his shoulder as a searing force knocked him back. The world slowed. The crowd screamed. Agents rushed in, tackling him to the ground as confusion reigned. Blood seeped through his suit, staining the crisp fabric with deep crimson. The light above him flickered. Sounds faded. His breathing shallowed. And then, darkness. The other side. For what felt like eternity, there was nothing. No sound, no pain, no fear. Just an overwhelming stillness, as if the entire universe had stopped breathing. Then, slowly, a glow emerged. A warmth spread through him, unlike anything he had ever known. It was peace. Not just any peace, but a divine presence, wrapping around him like a protective shield. He opened his eyes and found himself standing in a place that defied logic. A vast golden field stretched endlessly, bathed in a radiant light that had no source yet illuminated everything. The air was thick with power, humming with a celestial energy that made his very soul tremble. Then, a voice spoke. It was not a voice in the conventional sense. There was no sound, yet he heard it within every fiber of his being. It was deep, commanding, yet filled with an immeasurable love that made his knees weak. Your time is not yet finished. A presence materialized before him, brilliant, robed in white, eyes like flames of pure light. An angel? A messenger? He could not say. But what he knew, beyond any doubt, was that this was an encounter with the divine. You have been chosen, the voice continued. The battle you fight is not just of man, but of spirit. Forces beyond what you see have sought to silence you. But the hand of the Almighty is upon you. Trump tried to speak, but his voice failed him. The weight of the moment was too immense. The figure lifted a hand, and suddenly, he saw it all. The corruption, the lies, the hidden hands pulling the strings of a nation, of the world. He saw plans set in motion, deceptions crafted to enslave the free. He saw a system built on injustice, fueled by greed, protected by darkness. And then, he saw the people. Families struggling to make ends meet. Farmers losing their lands. Soldiers forgotten after war. The elderly left in despair. The children, the next generation, growing up in a world poisoned with lies. You are sent back, the voice declared, not for yourself, but for them. A sudden force pulled him, faster than light, back through the fabric of existence. The golden field faded, the warmth withdrew, and in its place came a searing, unbearable pain. His body was shaking, his chest heaved, his lungs burned. Back to the fight. A frantic voice called his name. Mr. President, stay with us. His eyes fluttered open. The ceiling of the hospital came into focus. Bright lights, the beeping of machines, the scent of antiseptic. Secret Service agents stood guard outside. A doctor hovered over him, his face pale with worry. You lost a lot of blood, the doctor said, but you're going to be okay. Trump exhaled sharply, his mind reeling. The vision was still vivid, burning into his consciousness. This was no ordinary brush with death. This was a command from the heavens, a mission, a divine directive. He tried to sit up. "I need to speak to the people." "Mr. President, you need to rest," the doctor insisted. But he knew there was no time. The battle was still raging, and he was not meant to sit in silence. The moment he was stable enough to stand, he addressed the nation. With his arm in a sling, his face resolute, he spoke the words that sent shockwaves across the world. "God saved me for a reason, and I intend to fulfill that reason." The airwaves exploded. The media twisted his words, mocked his faith, tried to dismiss it as delirium. But the people, the real people, listened, and they believed. Then came the next step, the revelation of financial corruption, the uncovering of fraudulent dealings, of trillions lost in mismanagement, the plan to take back what was stolen and return it to the American people. A battle not just of politics, but of justice. A war against an unseen enemy lurking in the very foundations of power. Some called him reckless. Others called him insane. But those who had eyes to see and ears to hear knew the truth. This was no ordinary fight. This was a reckoning. The prophecy unfolds. One by one, the walls began to crack. Reports surfaced. Investigations were launched. Whistleblowers stepped forward. The tangled web of deception was unraveling, and at its core lay a sinister truth, one that many had suspected but feared to name. Justice was coming. The economy was shifting, and as the storm raged, the people stood with him, unwavering. The opposition fought back harder than ever. Threats, lies, attacks from every side. But he did not waver, for he had seen what lay beyond. He knew the power guiding his steps. And then, the impossible happened. The financial systems that had enslaved the people for decades began to tremble. Policies that had drained the hard-earned money of citizens were exposed. The plan to return what was stolen took shape. Checks were prepared. Restitution was coming. Was it coincidence? Or was it divine justice? The media refused to acknowledge it, but the people knew. They had seen the miracles. They had heard the truth. And as they watched the events unfold, they understood. The prophecy was coming to pass. The final battle. As Trump stood before the roaring crowd once more, fully recovered, more determined than ever, he knew there was still much to do. The enemy would not go down without a fight. The darkness would resist until the last breath. But he was no longer just a man fighting for office. He was a warrior in a battle far greater than anyone could imagine. He lifted his hand to the sky, feeling the power surge through him. "They tried to take me out, but God had other plans. And let me tell you something, we are just getting started." The crowd erupted. The ground seemed to shake. And somewhere, beyond the veil of this world, a divine presence watched, knowing that the mission was far from over.